Hey guys, this is Chris. I want to show you guys quickly how to take this guy apart, what's inside, and how to maintain your new Etek 5. So first, what I want to do is weigh it for you guys, so that way you have a good idea of its weight. So we'll zero this out, put the Etek on top, and without a barrel, this is going to weigh 1.94 pounds. I think with the barrel, it weighs close to 2.26. Let me just throw the barrel up. 2.25. All right, so now that we weighed it, let's take this guy apart. All right, so one of the new things that they did with the Etek 5 is that they came in with this new bolt tip. This new bolt tip actually premiered with the Geo 3.5. It's very similar to another manufacturer with the 3 prongs right here. However, they're actually thicker, which will give you a better durability compared to another one that constantly breaks. So there you go. When you take apart your gun, first thing you want to do is take apart the grips. So let's do that real quick. To make this a little bit easier is to actually remove the macro line right here. To do that, simply push in on this little tab right here. And while holding that down, you want to just pull right out. Hiya. And there you go. Now the grips come out. So the Etek 5 has a very simple board to it. It's not that complex compared to other boards. As you can see here, get my hand out of the way for you, pull this out. That's pretty much it. So you can see, it's a very simple board. You have 3 plugs. This one goes to your macro switch, or micro switch. This one goes to your eyes. And this one goes to the solenoid. The OLED board is actually an optional upgrade that you can purchase in addition to your Etek 5. It is sold as an aftermarket part. To install it, as you can see, it has the slot right here and the pins right there. And all you have to do is just slide it in and you're good to go. The board on this thing, even though it's quite simple, you slap on the screen, which is actually really cool. Has a nice bright LED light right here. You can see the board extremely well. Has a really great backlight. Turn that off real quick. Get the battery part. The macro switch or micro switch is actually not screwed in at all. It is connected right here, as you can see by this clamp. It clamps on back here. And on the inside, there's 2 prongs. The 2 prongs basically hold the macro switch to the frame so that way it won't wiggle back and forth. But if you do get shot right here in the trigger and you need to take this out to clean, it comes out very simply. All you gotta do is just slap these off. Yeah. And as you can see, the switch right here can easily be cleaned if you, like I said, get it shot. And there's paint clogging up the back so your switch doesn't work. And just to put it back in, make sure that the holes line up with the plugs. Grab the clamp. And set it in and clamp it in. Now it's nice and secure. When you guys put it back to the board, make sure that you slide that right in the hole and gently push the board back in. But before I do that, I'm going to remove these wires. Make sure you be gentle when you're removing the wires. You don't want to pull anything bad off. All right. So that's the inside of the frame. There are washers right here where you can tighten in your ASA, as you can see, forward and backwards. For the ASA itself, this is the Oops ASA. It's basically a screw that when you degas it, as in unscrew it, the pin pushes in and all the gas goes out, and the tank doesn't have a pin pushing down on it, therefore no more air goes into the gun. When you screw it in, this pushes back, and now the tank is activated. All right, for the reg. The way I like to take the reg off, and I think this would probably be the best way to take it off, is first, you're gonna take your thumb and you're gonna just push this bottom part off. This is actually gonna show you right here a locking screw. So we're gonna unlock that. If it is on too tight, there are wrench spots where you can wrench down and get it off there. You're gonna pull off this slide collar for your ASA. And then all you have to do is just pull it right off. There you go. You're gonna take the reg and unscrew that. And this is the regulator. This is the exact same regulator you're gonna find on the LV1, and you're also gonna find on the Planet Eclipse GOs. It's a very reliable, very consistent regulator. So you're getting a high-end regulator regardless of the Etek price tag. All right, now for the LPR, what you want to do is you want to take your two fingers and you want to put them right there. You want to take an Allen key, and what I like to do is just give it a nice pull out. There you go. And the reason why I told you want to put your two fingers here is because this is actually spring loaded. So if you don't have your fingers there, there's a good chance that this thing will fly out towards you. And that's a bad sign. Alright. Alright, so inside your LPR, there's three main things that you need to worry about. This is your LPR adjuster right here. So this screw right here is going to adjust your PSI. When we got it in, the stock low pressure setting was 100. I tried to tune it a little bit, see what I can get going, and I did notice that there was actually two spots when you turn this thing that actually you'll feel tension. Meaning when I screw this, I will feel tension. It will keep going. I do not recommend doing that. But one way, as soon as you start feeling tension, that's actually 100 PSI. And if you turn it the other way and you start feeling tension, that's 80 PSI. So I'm theoretically thinking that you should try to keep your tuning LPR down to between 80 and 100 PSI. This unscrews right here. You really don't need to worry about any of this. If you have like a really dirty gun, then yeah, you want to take this apart. Clean this dowel rim tip off right here. Make sure that there's lube and no debris on the O-rings on the inside. And this spring sits right here. which has your piston right there for the LPR. This is your poppet shaft, as you can see right here. The only thing you need to do to keep this maintained is to grab a rag, a nice clean rag, and make sure that this thing is clean. That's it. Don't need to put lube on this guy. You just want to make sure he is nice and sparkly clean. Boom. As you can see here, this is for the poppet. When the ram inside the gun hits this goes forward, which releases the gas up into the gun. This projects your paintball forward, thus popping a good amount of air into your barrel. Pop it. Yay. All right. To keep these guys maintained, you probably only have to take these out once every 15 to 20 cases or so. You don't have to do it that often. But you want to make sure that you have a good amount of lube on these. So before you do that, you want to wipe them down. Now, when you lube these, when you get your gun, you're gonna get some nice Planet Eclipse gun oil. This stuff actually works really well and is recommended. However, I personally will only use these on certain parts of the gun, and I will go through that with you. But when you are lubing your gun, there are two different types of lube that you can use. You can use either oil, or you can use some sort of grease. This is monkey poo. This is my personal favorite. I like this stuff. It's a mixture of Dow 33 and Triflow and some banana scent, so it smells like bananas, which is awesome. But this is really nice lube because it stays on pretty thick and it's pretty slick as well. So when I'm lubing up O-rings that are sealing O-rings, such as these do not have moving parts on them, I will take this monkey poo and I will put it on the O-rings. You can use any other type of Dow 33 Triflow mix or just Dow 33 if you like. You can also use the gun or the silicone oil. It's really good. This is just personal preference. Now this guy right here is a moving O-ring, meaning that this O-ring will be in the gun and it needs to be lubed up because it's moving back and forth. You can actually use the silicone oil on this because it's a moving part. And all you want to do is just put a drop on, rub your fingers around it. The way that you know you have too much oil on this is that if it's pooling on the bottom, that means there's too much. When you guys are lubing your guns, like I said, there's two types of O-rings. There's sealing O-rings. As you can see, this one will seal air inside of the marker so it doesn't escape out. When you lube these up, all you have to do is just make sure that they're wet. When I say wet, I mean that they're not looking dry, they're not cracked out. They're wet and they're moist. So that way they won't become brittle and crack and break. So all you have to do is that. And that's it. That's pretty much as simple maintenance for your LPR. That's it. When you put this back in, remember that it is spring tension. So you want to put it in order. Spring goes there. This goes in there. And then you can just slide this one back into the bottom. Doesn't really matter which direction it is. This goes here, and this might be a little tricky, but it should be pretty easy. Just slide it back in. There's a hole in the inside, and that's where this guy's got to go. When you put this back together, just go ahead and make sure you have your finger right there, And then just slide this back in. And it's gonna stay there nice and pretty. All right, now let's get to the RAM. Maintenance, super simple. Take a rag, wipe it down. Check the O-rings, make sure that there are no cracks, no debris, no splitting, everything's fine. Take your oil, give it a drop, 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 and spin. It's that easy. Look at it, make sure it's nice. Slide it back in. There is an O-ring right here. That's a sealing O-ring, so make sure that you wipe that down. Put a little drop of oil or lube on that. Seal that back in. Good to go. And of course, for your bolts, keep this guy clean. So your bolt's good, your ram's good. When you guys click it in, a good way to know that's inside is that you should be able to find the ram. And when you push forward, you'll feel a spring tension. And when you pull to pop it all the way back, it lines up nicely with the gun, like it's designed to do that. Okay. Regulator maintenance, really simple. Now, for your regulator, you can take some oil, put a bit on the O-ring, give it a good twirl. This is the one part of your gun that if you put a little bit too much oil on it, don't worry about it. But what I like to do with regs, and this is so I get really good consistency, and I'll do this about every 5 cases or so, is I take the O-ring off, okay? I take my grease, and I do this on the reg, and I put a helping portion, and as you can see there, it looks nice and pretty. Put the O-ring back on, give it a nice little twirl. I do a lot of spinning when I tech guns. And you also want to make the inside, make sure the inside of the ram shaft is, or I'm sorry, not the ram shaft, the reg shaft is nice and clean as well. So clean this guy up. And we're gonna slide this in. Boom, reg maintenance done. This thing's gonna stick in there fairly well. So that's how you know you have a good amount of lube in there. This should be good for 5 to 6 cases, like I said. So if you're playing a tournament and you should be able to shoot all day, make sure you re-lube it that night though. Otherwise you're gonna have gun problems on Sunday, and that's the day that matters. There's another sealing O-ring up here. So you can use oil on these and just give it a little spin. Sealing O-rings. Slide this back on, nice and smooth. That's good to go. And then we're gonna put this back together. Good to go. Okay, as you can see, earlier we took apart these wires, and that's because we're going to, boom, take off the frame. This is your solenoid right here. Underneath your solenoid is a gasket. There are 2 sets of O-rings. They are specialty O-rings that go on here. Underneath the solenoid, there will be a gasket O-ring, and underneath the plastic gasket, there will be another O-ring. Both these O-rings are included in your kit, so if you do need to replace them, they're easily done. So let's take this off and I'll show you. Here's the first set of O-rings. As you can see right now, they're pretty well lubed up, so I'm not even going to touch those. But normally if you are going to lube them up, get some oil on your fingertips and just rub it around. Now for underneath, here's another O-ring. As you can see, that's pretty well oiled, so I'm not even going to touch it. When you look at these, you want to make sure that there's no gashes in them. That's going to cause a leak. So if you have leak from the area, you want to make sure that there's no gashes in these O-rings. Also, these are transfer tubes for your ram shaft. So if you have gun shooting problems, like I said, and you couldn't figure out what it is, make sure there's no debris inside those transfer tubes. So let's put this back together real quick. And when you guys screw these back in, make sure you don't screw them in super tight. Just make sure it's hand tight, because this is still a composite plastic, and if you get a little bit too rough with it, it will crack and ruin your day. Make sure this faces forward, the metal part. Alright, and lastly, let's look at the eyes. These are really simple eyes. If you ever need to replace these eyes, just keep in mind that Planet Eclipse has the same set of eyes for their LV1 and their Geos. But there you go. When you guys take apart your eye covers, make sure that there's no debris anywhere inside the port right here. Also, this is your detent. When you guys check your detents, make sure that they're nice and clean, that there's no chipping, fraying, or splitting at all at the tips. If you're missing the tip altogether, that's a good sign, that you have to replace it. So keep that going, nice and good. Make sure your eyes are nice and clean on both sides. And just put that in. And when you put your eye covers back in, it's really important that you put them in carefully, because you don't want to pinch a wire. That would really suck. Like I said, careful, we're not going to pinch any wires, so we're going to put the wires in first. When you guys put in your macro line, my recommendation is to take the macro line, shove it in, and then taking your nail, push up on the lock collar right there. And that way, when you put it in, it's going to be flush towards the back of the marker. And I'm going to be honest, macro lines will leak. It's going to happen. You're going to have to wiggle it every once in a while to get to stop. But this way, if you get it nice tight in there and then pull the locking way out, it's going to reduce the amount of leaks you're going to have. And that's it, guys. The Etek 5 by Planet Eclipse. Probably, for the price range, one of the best guns out on the market right now. I'm completely convinced that this is something that people are going to be shooting a lot next year. Thank you for watching our video. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, so that way we'll be continuing to make more videos just like this. We really appreciate everything that you guys have done. The fact that we got this gun in from Jack Wood and he said give a review is a huge honor to us. So once again, thank you. Thank you for watching the show. And I'm just gonna give you 2 more seconds to look at this beauty before I say goodbye. Goodbye, guys.